Hey now, happy Monday. Welcome to 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. Nice to talk to you. It's been a while. Been a little bit. Been a while. Thanks for having me back. Dan Lucero here as well. He's been holding down the fort the last few days.
You picked a hell of a week to go on vacation.
You know, I wanted to do a nice thing for you and let you have a week where you would have just an overflowing amount of content.
Where everything popped off.
Yes, nonstop.
Yes.
Constantly.
There's no longer one of the Power 5 conferences. It's gone.
Yeah.
It's just gone now.
Yeah. I definitely had some FOMO. I definitely did. I had a little bit of the fear of missing out because every day we'd get up, we'd go get brunch, we'd go to the beach, maybe do some shopping, get back to our hotel or Airbnb, condo, wherever, and suddenly I'd look at my phone. I wasn't checking Twitter all that much, just trying to avoid too much social media on vacation, and boom, we've got teams going all over the place. We got meetings, we got canceled meetings, we got Oregon and Washington, we've got the three to add to the already one new school in the Big 12. We're going to get to all that coming up here in just a few minutes. We're going to hear from Lance Leipold later on in the show as well, head coach of the Kansas Jayhawks. He spoke today, his weekly camp press conference, and he was asked a little bit about realignment and his thoughts on it.
We'll also talk some football.
Yes.
Like actual college football gridiron games.
Actual ball.
Yes.
We're going to get to. Thank God.
There's the SIDs and AIDS poll came out today.
Mm-hmm.
They call it the coaches poll, but we can call it what it really is.
Yeah.
The SID and coaches AIDS poll.
PJ Fleck ain't voting in that. Actually, you know what? I take it back. If anyone was going to, I bet you PJ Fleck would.
He's got like a whole acronym about his process.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Yeah. My feathered poll process and every acrostic poem. And speaking, by the way, real quick about Coach Leipold, and you know how much, reverence I have for him. I appreciated his take on the matter far more than major hypocrites, Eli Drinkwitz and Jimbo Fisher. Like, if anyone should not talk about chasing the dollar bills, it's you two at those schools. But again, we'll get to all of this coming up over the course of the show today. Right after Dan went off the air on Friday, it became official. Arizona State, Utah, they are all coming in to the Big 12 to join the returning Colorado Buffaloes. The Big 16, the return of the Mid-Continent Conference. I don't know. It's something. Whatever it's going to end up being. We'll get to all of that coming up today. A lot of college football to get to. In fact, the poll, talk some KU. Coming up on tomorrow's show, we'll hear from Chris Kleiman, hopefully as well, as he speaks a little bit. So a lot of college football to get to. We'll talk plenty of NFL today. We've got our Chiefs training camp report with Mitch Holthus at 5:15. We'll chat with Matt Verderame at the bottom of this hour about everything going on around the NFL as well. We'll take your texts. We'll take your comments on YouTube as well. Text line 785-272-9429. YouTube channel, Sports on 580 WIBW. And we need to give, and I'm sure you already have, we need to give a major round of applause to Dan for like PBS pledge drive numbers on our YouTube subscriptions.
You know what's a powerful motivator? Spite.
Hey, look, I told you this right before we turned the mics on today. Whatever works. I will happily take that.
Who knew that would work? Who knew that would work? That the listeners would rally behind me and only me and decide to get us up over that 300 mark so that I could take credit for all of it. But hey, we appreciate each and every one of you, however you came to subscribe and however you came to watch the program on YouTube.
And speaking of the program on YouTube and here on 580 WIBW, the sports voice of Kansas, FM 104.9, and 580WIBW.com. I know this was announced earlier today during Mic'd Up, but it is worth an announcement on this program as well. Starting 1 week from today at 2 o'clock will be the return of the 4-hour edition of 580 Sports Talk. Our good pal Fulton is moving on in his professional career. He is going to take on some other challenges and opportunities in his home city of Wichita. So with Fulton stepping aside, we'll have a 3-man crew. We're going to go back to the old days. 4 hours, 2 to 6, every single weekday of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero, and Jake LeBon.
580 Sports Talk Classic.
Yes.
Which I guess makes us new 580 Sports Talk.
Yeah,
I kind of resent that a little bit. Yeah, I don't love where that comparison took me. But no, it'll be it'll be fun. That's one of the longer lasting configurations of 580 Sports Talk in history is the power trio, Jake, Brendan, and Dan. And it will be fun to reunite and make 4 hours of sports talk radio for you every day from 2 to 6.
Yep, we are excited about it. We are very happy with what we have done in our 3-hour slot over the past year and a half. I think we have done a lot of good stuff. Hope you have enjoyed it as well. Hope you've enjoyed the mic'd up experience as well. But also very excited for a new challenge, which is also an old challenge.
Yes.
And it's going to be fun because we had some good times from what would that have been? August of 2017 through the early part of 2020.
Yeah.
So no, we are looking forward to it. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us and appreciate you following along for the new era of 580 Sports Talk, which begins in 1 week. Again, we'll take your comments on YouTube, Sports on 580 WIBW, texts to the text line 785-272-9429. By the way, we're going to do the good, the bad, and the ugly a little bit later on. I had a whole list. I had my good, bad, and ugly written out yesterday afternoon, in fact. I already knew what my 3 were going to be. And then I had the plane trip from hell. So I've got a new ugly for you coming up in about 20 minutes.
One of the great long-standing 580 sports traditions is any one of us coming back from a trip that involved air travel and saying, boy, let me tell you how miserable that was.
And how much it sucked. So we'll get to that in the good, the bad, and the ugly. There was plenty of good, but boy, have the last 24 hours been ugly for your boy. All right, let's get to some college football, but not quite on the field as of yet. It became official Friday night, shortly after Dan and the one and only Kyle Manthe went off the air on 580 Sports Talk. Shout out to Kyle, by the way.
Yes, Kyle stepped in, filled some big shoes. He was awesome.
Great stuff from Kyle. Really the Earl Morrill of 580 Sports Talk and the Sports on 580 programming. Shout out to anyone who gets that reference. Anywho, Arizona State, and Utah, they are joining former Pac-12 program Colorado. They are leaving. They are absconding from that conference, specifically absconding from Washington State, Oregon State, Stanford, and Cal. And they are headed to the Big 12 starting in 2024. It will be a 16-team conference. Again, Colorado also joining as well. This was inevitable. It felt for a lot of the early part of last week, I felt like I was at a distance from it a little bit. I was reading a lot more recap than I was reading stuff as it was breaking, which honestly for my mental health might have been a good thing because there was so much information.
It was so much.
Incredible. Just nonstop. And the big difference, I think, we talked about this before I left for vacation, was that it stopped being mostly reporters who not necessarily had an agenda, but you could tell who the sourcing was, that it was some reporters who very clearly were talking to people from Pullman and Corvallis, and some people who clearly were talking to, boosters and donors and regents who wanted to make a move to the Big 12. Then it became Brett McMurphy. Then it became Pete Thamel and the guys at The Athletic who do not have those kind of biases, who are not going to report it unless it's going to happen. And I think it felt to me, at least, like it was inevitable that this was going to happen, that either the 4 corner schools were going to break first or Oregon and Washington were going to break first. Late Friday, I think this happened when you were on the air. Oregon and Washington jumped from the Pac-12.
Brett McMurphy reported that, I think, midday on Friday. And Oregon had their Board of Regents meeting with the chair of the board playing golf on the Zoom call, not at a golf course, not sitting in his golf cart, waving people by. Hey, I got to attend to this, but you go ahead and you hit your tee shot on 6. That man was climbing out of sand traps and conducting this meeting, a hugely consequential meeting for his school and for the face of college sports. And yeah, by the time I signed off at 5:30, Oregon had already done their press release. They were going.
I vote yes. Now watch me hit this putt.
Now watch this drive. It was just like George W. Now watch this drive.
So that it was inevitable that something was going to happen. It's Oregon and Washington first. I guess I'm not entirely surprised that it was those two who ended up bolting first, because there was some resistance from the 4 corner schools, specifically Arizona State. Arizona has kind of been the team, even more so than Colorado, it felt like for a while. Like, hey, we'd love to be in the Big 12. Maybe you should invite us to the Big 12. Wouldn't it be great to be in the Big 12? you heard leaks like that for a while.
Yeah, they're psyched. Like, from the Arizona side, they're excited to be here. And they're excited to be here because their basketball program joins the best basketball league in the country. Yeah. It's really, I think, as simple a calculation as that.
Yeah.
That they have an opportunity now to maybe some years have a home and home with Kansas, to go and play Baylor, to play Houston, to be in the best basketball league in the country, the league that's been the best basketball league in the country for the past decade.
Because that's an athletic department that cares about basketball.
Yes, very much.
And it's validation, right? Like, you're going to lose playing UCLA. Those were fun games. That was probably the best basketball rivalry in the Pac-12 over the last decade.
Definitely.
But you get Kansas, you get Baylor, you get some of the teams you've been playing. You still get to play Arizona State. That is obviously a meaningful game. You get all this great basketball coming in. That's good for them. Utah, I don't really know where Utah landed on it.
I don't either.
Some fans on social media were all about it, at least last week. Some fans were, no, we're not going to that truck. They essentially parroted Bill Walton quotes, like, we're not going to that truck stop conference.
I have a longtime friend who is a University of Utah graduate and fan, and says, yes, the obnoxious portion of the Utah Twitter fan base did not want to leave the Pac-12. And it's like 10 people, but they're really loud.
Yeah, I get that.
They are the unsilent minority of Utah fans. But I think that created a perception.
Sure.
Certainly in the weeds of Big 12 Twitter that I tend to find myself in, the perception that Utah didn't want to be in the league, or that we shouldn't want Utah to be in the league, or whatever. Man, Utah is such an awesome addition to the Big 12.
Yeah,
they're going to fit like a glove from day one.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome having them in the league.
Yeah, I'm all for Utah. I have a lot of respect for Kyle Whittingham, for that program, football-wise specifically. Basketball was a little bit better. Now, the thing about the basketball editions is it is going to, I think, it'll bring the overall quality of the league down, I think, but the top of the league is going to be as good as it has ever been, ever. And that is really exciting. And that brings us to Arizona State. And there, is it the president? Is that his official title?
I think so. Michael Crow,
who was one of the more important pieces, I would argue, behind the downfall of the Pac-12. Maybe not the most important, but among the most important. He is someone who continuously voted to keep Larry Scott in power in the Pac-12. And here's a quick refresher if you don't remember. Larry Scott's probably the worst commissioner in the history of major college sports, okay? He was a major proponent. He never wanted to leave the Pac-12 because to him, and this has been widely reported at this point, leaving the Pac-12 was essentially viewed as a failure, the ultimate failure for him.
A personal embarrassment.
Because he did so much and talked so much behind the scenes and so much publicly, and frankly has not shut up about it since with comments about West Virginia. I'm sending my deputy AD to go to West Virginia.
Yeah, that was Ray Anderson, the athletic director, who, hey, way to get into the spirit and create a rivalry with a new school before you even join the league. That's a great job.
West Virginia fans are going to eat you alive, Ray. They are going to eat you alive. So yes, I confused my people there. But nonetheless, their perspective from an administrative standpoint has very much been, we never wanted to leave the Pac-12, which I guess I get. Like, you dig your heels in, you want to stick with what you know, what's been good to you, I guess. But like, from an honest, earnest standpoint, which person in history would you rather be? The first one to the lifeboat or the band playing as the Titanic broke in half like an egg? Which would you have rather been? Because if Arizona State had gotten Michael Crow's wish, they're playing a double round robin in football with Oregon State and the rest of those programs every year. Right.
Like, which of those schools athletically do you want to be? Now, Michael Crow does deserve a great deal of credit. If you know anything about Arizona State, you probably know about, if you know anything at all about the institution, you probably know about its perception as a party school. That is something that has been fed for years and years and years and joked about. Under Michael Crow's leadership, Arizona State has become one of the leading innovation and research campuses in the United States.
Yeah.
Like, they have completely changed their academic reputation. So give Michael Crow his flowers where it is due. But we're not talking about academics. We're talking about athletics. Specifically, we're talking about football, and we're talking about men's basketball, where football hasn't been real good for the last, they haven't been to a BCS/New Year's Six game ever.
Mm-hmm.
The last time they went to a game of that caliber was in 1997 Rose Bowl. They have not been to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament since 1995. And for a school that resides, more so than Arizona, you have the proximity to the talent in Phoenix at Arizona State, and there is a great deal of talent in Phoenix. Ask any school recruiting that area.
Yeah, go ask Lance Leipold what he thinks about the greater Phoenix area right now.
Yes, there's a ton of athletic talent there. And for the flagship Division I school in the Valley to have underachieved to that level, that is a failure of leadership. Never mind not being able to keep the Pac-12 together. So Arizona State kind of feels stuck athletically with Michael Crow driving the bus, and he is very definitely being dragged into this kicking and screaming. But that's him. Don't get that confused with an Arizona State athletic fan base who understands, as we all do, that you had to get a seat on the lifeboat. And it's the only way to maintain relevance for that athletic department.
So whether they were excited, whether they were dragged kicking and screaming, or whether we don't really know institutionally what they wanted in the long run, 3 new members of the Big 12. I put this on Twitter a few times while I was gone, and I would have said the same thing as this was all unfolding last week and I had been here. I simultaneously think this is awesome for the Big 12. I think the football is going to be fun. I'm glad that at least with a group of schools from the Pac-12 coming, I'm glad there are going to be some regional rivalries that stay. I'm glad the Territorial Cup is going to be played. That's a good rivalry in football. Even when the teams stink, Arizona State's a fun football rivalry. Utah, Colorado, you talked about this a while back.
Rumble in the Rockies, yeah.
Yeah, they've got a little thing going. Holy War, BYU, Utah.
The Holy War, it's back. It's a conference game again.
Awesome.
So not only is it back, it's meaningful.
Yes.
And that's super exciting.
Yeah. Even when they weren't in the same conference, go ask people in Utah if that game was meaningful. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's the added portion of it's one of the nastiest rivalries in college sports.
Big time.
You think you've seen some nastiness. You think you've seen in Texas, Oklahoma, things get nasty, or Bedlam, things get nasty. Nah, man, BYU Utah is a different animal.
Yeah, there aren't a whole lot of rivalries that are making references to Nauvoo, Illinois, 1844. Okay, there's a lot of bad blood there. So that's great. Love that. That is awesome. For the Big 12 conference, this is a good thing. I am more and more, and this makes me a hypocrite because we made so much content out of this as sports talk hosts, but I'm against, I think, a lot of this realignment. I understand why. I get the why. But I love college football, not because it's NFL junior. I like it because it is unique, because it is, there's a lot of entropy. Things are constantly moving, constantly changing. And the beauty of the sport is that these are kids. They're 18 to 22, BYU's case, maybe 24-year-old kids who do dumb things sometimes.
Utah, too. Don't get that twisted.
Well, yeah, no, that's true, too. They do dumb things. They do wild things. That makes it fun. And the rivalries and hundreds of years of, wow, we hate these people. We don't even really remember why. They, stole the live campus mascot in 1920, and we've hated them since. That is cool. Whereas, Oregon versus Ohio State was really cool. What was it, 2 years ago? When Oregon upset Ohio State?
Yeah.
Does that have the same meaning when they play every year in September? Does Michigan versus...
It means about the same thing as essentially Jets Chiefs. Oh, okay. Yeah, this is there's some history, sure. Marquee matchup of quarterbacks, yeah, absolutely. But is Jets Chiefs in 2023 going to mean the same thing as it did in 1996, or mean the same thing as it will in 2042? No. That was the beauty of the regional rivalries, is they mean the same thing. The stakes might be a higher or lower some years, but it means the same. It's for the same bragging rights. Sometimes it's more the same ridiculous totem, whether it's a jeweled shillelagh or a little brown jug or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Those things, there being less of those things is bad. It's sad. It's disappointing. And I agree with that 100%. I am totally receptive to the argument that this is bad in many ways for college football. And that's to say nothing for what this means for non-revenue sports, what this means for, particularly Big Ten schools who are now going to literally have to do cross-country travel like they are an NFL team just to play like a Thursday night volleyball match.
Yeah.
Or a swim meet, to say nothing for like the real Olympic sports where Stanford and Cal have generated so many U.S. Olympic athletes,
tons of them,
in sports like swimming or water polo or whatever it is. And now, where are they going to compete? Like, who are they going to compete against?
Right.
Are their athletic departments still viable moving forward? Those are all questions we don't know the answers to yet.
And to the point about the Olympic sports, or what are called often the non-revenue sports, we are going to have less of them. Like, I don't think, to me, that's not an unintended consequence. That is a very obvious consequence of this. Ohio State cut tennis recently. There is absolutely no reason that Ohio State needed to cut its women's tennis program. Not one. They've got all the money in the world. They're going to get $70 million annually just from their football and men's basketball contracts, plus everything, all the merchandise, all the tickets to sold-out games of the shoe, units from the NCAA tournament. They have no need to cut programs, but they did. It was, the funding for the program, and, it does cost a lot of money for the travel and all this. You know how you could have avoided that? Not voting to play Wednesday night volleyball games in Eugene. Not having to have Rutgers go all the way to Seattle to row. Like, that doesn't make any logical sense. And the tradition going away sucks. And as much as we can make fun of the Pac-12 for being run embarrassingly badly, it's been around for a long time. Those teams have played each other for a long time.
108 years of history. 108 years of history in that conference. And nobody wanted to see it die.
No.
Nobody was rooting for the demise of the Conference of Champions. It just happened to die. And in a situation like that, you're either positioned to benefit as best you can or not. And the four schools that are joining the Big 12 and the Big 12 itself, I think it's undeniable, have benefited a great deal. That's from the perspective of someone who follows the Big 12, for the perspective of someone who that's kind of part of how we make a living here. That's great. That's a positive. Big thumbs up for all of the additions from the remnants of the Pac-12. But that doesn't mean also you can't look at that whole situation with a bit of melancholy and wonder, what does that mean for non-revenue athletes? What does this mean for the future of what college football and college sports as a whole look like? Like, everybody feels very safe and secure in the Big 12 now. What happens in 2031 if the cable TV bubble has fully burst? What magic is Brett Yormark going to work to keep these athletic programs, these 16 programs, viable nationally? Is $32 million a year going to be there for those schools in 2031? If not, then what? Like, there are so many questions, and we have only just begun, I think, to really understand the ramifications of what just happened in a week. Not even a week, really, like 72 hours.
I will say this: the one argument, there are a lot of arguments here why it's good, why it's bad, why you're excited, why you're not excited. And they come from, the schools that were left behind in the Pac-12. And even among those four schools, there's probably different perspectives on this. Or maybe you say, hey, I hate this because I care more about the tradition and I love those things. But I'm mostly on your side. Or if you said, hey, I want to see consolidated talent. I want to see all the best basketball in one place, all the best football in one place. I disagree, but fine. Fair enough. The one argument I will not respect, and I have seen this from people at Sports Illustrated. I saw this all over the place from Matt Moscana, who is a talk host in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. You can put the pieces together where his affiliations lie with a bunch of other national people. If you are essentially rooting for Disney and the Fox Corporation and all of this, and if you bring TV ratings to me, like if you say, oh, well, nobody watches Mountain West football, so I don't really care if that conference falls apart. Oh, well, the ratings were bad for Arizona and Arizona State, so, who cares, really? I do not respect your opinion on sports. I do not respect it. If you come to me and your argument about why this is good or bad is, yeah, but TV ratings, and think of the revenue, I do not care what you have to say about sports. I do not. I did not fall in love with football when I was like 3 years old, so I could talk about how much money Norby Williamson is making at ESPN. I do not care. And if you're telling me that, that's fine. Keep it to yourself. That is the one argument I will not listen to.
Yeah, rooting for a conference or rooting for revenue, that's not why any of us got into what we do. And I'm sure that's not why any of you fell in love with athletics of any kind, never mind college athletics. So yeah, the backslapping and the pointing to all of that as evidence, like, it might be true, but what good does that do you?
Yeah.
What do you benefit from that?
Yeah, you getting that cash? Is that trickling down to you?
It's not even trickling down to the players we're watching.
No, ain't that the truth? We'll talk plenty more college football, get some more realignment coming up later on in the show. We do have a ton to get to today on this shortened edition of 580 Sports Talk. We're off at 5:30 because of Royals versus Red Sox baseball. We'll talk some Royals later on as well. Later on this hour, we'll hear from Matt Verderame of Sports Illustrated to talk about the NFL. But first, we'll recap the weekend with the good, the bad, and the ugly next here on 580 Sports Talk. Time to recap the weekend with the good, the bad, and the ugly real quickly here before we get to Matt Verderame to talk about the NFL. The good for me, I had a really nice vacation. It was a lot of fun. Went to a bunch of different places, ate a ton of good food, spent a lot of time on the beach. Just got to hang out with my wife for 10 days. No, it was great. Had a really good time. Enjoyed all of it.
Good. Glad to hear it. My good for the weekend. What were you doing in 2009?
I was getting ready for my freshman year of high school.
I was in the summer of my first professional job working in Warland, Wyoming. Also, the Colorado Rockies won a road series in St. Louis that year and then didn't do it again until this year. a 1-0 win yesterday in St. Louis. Rockies take 2 out of 3 from the Cardinals. I enjoyed it very much.
I'm so glad that everybody can come together to enjoy the failings of the St. Louis Cardinals together. By the way, that stadium empty this weekend.
Man, when they rallied in the 8th inning and it looked like they might score a run yesterday, it sounded like a college wooden bat league crowd. It was sparse as hell in that ballpark. Best fans, my ass.
Yeah, these are best fans in baseball, folks. My bad is that this weekend, Mike Florio wrote that it would make sense for the Chiefs to sign Josh Jacobs because 30 years ago they signed Marcus Allen. Huh. That was his reasoning, is that it would be like a modern-day Marcus Allen, completely ignoring literally any logic. He sucks. Do not read Pro Football Talk. Do not do it.
My bad, and it was also my ugly because I'm going to get out of the way for your ugly. But, Tim Anderson, getting slumped by Jose Ramirez. Fight night at Progressive Field on, was that Friday or Saturday? That was Saturday, right?
Saturday night, yeah.
Saturday night. Tim Anderson got creased. Tim Anderson, the person, his reputation has taken a well-deserved hit in the past year, but I've always kind of enjoyed Tim Anderson, the baseball player. Like, he's a fun player to watch. I like his energy. He's had a terrible year. He's maybe been the worst everyday player in baseball. And now all anybody's going to remember about him ever is the time Jose Ramirez rocked him so bad that he did the stanky leg on his way back to the dugout. He couldn't keep his feet. He was punch drunk on his way back to the dugout. That is a bad look. That's a bad season.
That's one of the best videos of a baseball fight I've ever seen. I think that
it's an all-time great baseball punch.
Yeah, it really is. TA dropped his glove and then stood southpaw and then threw a right-hand punch first. It was all over from there.
Try to establish the jab. Look, he's studied the fight game.
Look, man, I would not mess with Jose Ramirez. He's billed at 190. Dude, if he is 190, I'm like 110 pounds. There's no way. No way he's just 190. My ugly. So we flew home from Savannah, Georgia yesterday, or at least we were supposed to. We had a late flight. We wanted to maximize the last day of our trip, right? Drop our rental car off at 7 o'clock. Our flight was at about 9. Storms all across the southeast, all over the state of Georgia. Just rain all day. Tons of flights were canceled all up across the East Coast. Our flight gets delayed 2 hours. We end up still flying to the first half of our connection last night. We get to Nashville. Well, we missed our connecting flight because we were delayed by 2 hours. So we had to rebook. They rebooked us for 5 a.m. this morning from Nashville to Dallas to then back here. By the time we got into Nashville, it was already midnight. We weren't going to spend enough money to get a hotel room for 3 hours. So we slept on the floor of the Nashville airport. And by slept, I mean, I think I lost consciousness for like 45 minutes, maybe. I am really tired. I don't know if you can see it. If you're watching the YouTube, I'm really tired. Then we rebooked ourselves again because our flight was actually going to reroute through Austin. So I don't really know what the hell Southwest was doing to us, why they were going to try to make us take 3 flights today. Anyway, we got rerouted direct to Dallas, then finally got home just before noon. I'm tired. I'm very mad at the concept of weather. I'm very mad at Southwest Airlines, and I'm very tired.
Yeah, air travel really having a tough last, 12 months.
Yeah.
The very concept of convenient air travel.
It's dead. It is dead. There's nothing convenient about it.
No.
And that was the worst part. The best flight day I had, I got delayed 3 hours on the start of our trip.
Yeah.
And that was the good day.
Next time, just walk.
Yeah, maybe.
Might get there faster.
Coming up after this, we'll chat with Matt Verderame about everything going on in the NFL here on 580 Sports Talk.
I'm Jim Chesko with your money now.
glory lasts forever.
How could he not be romantic about football, man?
Every Monday at this time, we chat with Matt Verderame, NFL staff writer for Sports Illustrated. You can find his work in Sports Illustrated at si.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. Matt, how jacked up were you for the Hall of Fame game this past week?
I was not. It's not good, but it's over, and we can all thankfully move on.
Did you feel an obligation to watch it?
No, I did not watch it. I have standards in my life, and the Hall of Fame game did not meet it. If Sports Illustrated told me I had to watch it, I would have sat there and watched it. But thankfully, they're a good employer, and they understood.
Yeah, I was on vacation this past week, and we got home from dinner, and I was sitting on the couch with my wife, and I said, "Well, I'm sure I'll turn it on." Regrettable, not good. I was done with Dorian Thompson-Robinson when he left UCLA, but apparently I had to get one more night's worth left in him. But from an actual serious, maybe there is something interesting developing perspective, Matt, around the NFL, as we get closer to the start of actual preseason games coming up here soon, is there anything you are most interested in around the league actually seeing unfold on the field? I know you can only take so much from the preseason, but once we get the pads on, once we get some of these exhibitions underway, is there one thing that you are most keenly excited for or expecting or hoping to see during these first couple of weeks of games?
I always say the same thing with this. I mean, let's see the rookie quarterbacks. I don't care what their stats are. I don't care. Because the guy could throw a swing pass that goes from 90 yards, and it has nothing to do with how he played. But I want to see, how are you doing in the pocket? Are you comfortable? Is your footwork good? Are you accurate? Can you make the throws outside the numbers? I think those are the things that I like to get a grasp of. So I'll be watching a CJ Stroud. I just spent a day in Indianapolis with Anthony Richardson and the Colts. I am very excited to see how he plays. I'll tell you right now, he's not going to have a problem throwing the ball outside the numbers. So I am curious with stuff like that. I don't care who wins and loses. You're not getting any idea of who can coach, but I do think you can watch little things and try to pick up on some details.
From the quarterback group that is still young, but not the rookie class. So we're looking at Jordan Love. I know you've written about Jordan this offseason, Matt. I know there's obviously a lot of eyes on him. I'm thinking of Brock Purdy, who may not play in the preseason opener for the 49ers, but it sounds like he's going to be good to go at some point to be able to get out there before the regular season starts. And some of the other young quarterbacks around the league. Are there any of them that you're especially interested in seeing, or when you're even, a couple years beyond your rookie season, do you lose some of the value of those preseason games?
Yeah, look, I don't go nuts about a lot of that stuff. Once you get past rookie year, maybe a little bit of your second year, but I really think your rookie year tells you a lot more, because if you've played in games, like let's say Brock Purdy was playing in the first game, he's played in real games. He's played in playoff games. I don't care what he looks like against the Raiders in August. I think the biggest win you can have in the preseason is that nobody gets hurt. Because that's the thing coming out of the preseason that unfortunately happens every year, where some team loses a guy or two. I remember years ago when Julian Edelman got hurt, tore his ACL in Detroit. And it was a huge blow. Now New England went on to have a good year because it's New England. But the point remains, those are the things you can't live with. Look, if you're a veteran team, if you're the Eagles, you're the Chiefs, you're the Bills, who cares? You can lose 50-0. It doesn't matter. I think it's really about watching the rookies. That is, for me, the value of preseason beyond just, hey, it's football.
Our guest is Matt Verderame, covers the National Football League for Sports Illustrated, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline, as he does every Monday at this time on 580 Sports Talk. You can find Matt's work on the website, si.com. Check him out in the magazine, too, and find him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. Matt, there's still a lot of valuable veterans still on the sidelines as free agents. Are we to the point now where we're probably not going to see too much movement until camp injuries or preseason injuries force the hand on teams to pay Dalvin Cook or Kareem Hunt or somebody along those lines?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. Look, you've seen a little movement at the edge rush position. I was in Chicago for Yannick Ngakwe's opening presser. He came in, got the 1-year, $10 million deal. Justin Houston signs in Carolina, 1-6, up to 7. By the way, I think it's a great signing for Carolina. Those guys are getting in for that first preseason game, which a lot of vets will tell you that's kind of when you want to get in there. You want to be acclimated, a little bit, knock the rust off. Especially if you're joining a new team, you really want to get in there and have, at least a month, and that's exactly what you have now for the opening game of the season. But yeah, I think with some of these backs, what's the rush? Why worry? I mean, if you're Dalvin Cook, it's not like you're a quarterback and you got to know the whole scheme. You got to know a set amount of things, but you can get in there and do that. You're a veteran. So yeah, I think there is a little bit at this point of a thought of, hey, look, why not wait? Why put myself through camp? I'll stay in shape. I'll do my own thing. I know what I need to do. And when the call comes, and I'll be ready.
Charles Omenihu, 6-game suspension for the new Kansas City Chief. And there's no way that was something that caught the Chiefs off guard. Andy Reid even mentioned that today, that they knew something was coming after Omenihu was arrested and charged with domestic violence during the playoffs last year, back in July or January. So he gets 6 games. Do you think the Chiefs stick with their in-house solutions to cover that gap for those 6 weeks, or is there a chance they might look to the free agent market to make a veteran addition at that spot, much like they've done late in camp last couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know that they will. I think they should. And Carlos Dunlap's still out there, played pretty well for them last year. I mean, if I'm the Chiefs, why not? Now you can say, well, why not? 'Cause you don't have the cap space, which lends itself to a whole other line of questioning with Chris Jones. That's neither here nor there. But if they can find the cap space, yeah, I think they should. Because right now, what are you looking at? I mean, you've got Karlaftis. Okay. What else? Adedike Uzama. He's at a quiet camp. He's a rookie. Mike Dana, good rotational player. Don't know that you want him out there for a huge lion's share of the snaps. What are you going to do? I think the Chiefs are almost compelled to do it. You've got to go out and get somebody. But at the same point, as Andy Reid pointed out, they knew this was coming, and they haven't done anything to protect themselves against this. So, if you have Chris Jones, you could say, well, he could take some of those snaps. Like, granted, you don't want to do it too much. I think it's taken away from the inside. But, yeah, I think the Chiefs could use another body. Will they go get one? I don't know, but I think it would be wise.
At what point do you get closer to DEFCON 1 than to DEFCON 5 with regards to the Chris Jones contract situation, do you think?
I mean, 3 more days, you're hitting $1 million in fines. So, he clearly is as dug in as you can be, at least to this point. He will come back eventually. I do not think he's going to be forfeiting game checks, but I think he's shown he's serious. I know there have been reports, and I'm not trying to refute them by any means, but that have been, the Chiefs are really confident. Okay, well, I mean, you can be as confident as you want. At some point, I actually have to sign the guy. Like, if you're confident, that's great, but confidence doesn't mean anything if it doesn't materialize into a result. And so far, the Chiefs are just in this what seemingly intractable position with Chris Jones. The thing that is surprising about this negotiation, this should not be that hard to figure out what the numbers are. You've had a slew of star defensive tackles signed this offseason. And you have Aaron Donald, who, granted, is the outlier. But you had to know Chris Jones is going to want more toward Aaron Donald money than he was going to want toward Quinn Williams. There's no world when Quinn Williams signed for 24, the Chiefs were just like, okay, that's great, $25 million. That was never going to happen. Like, you had to have known this was always going to be high 20s. Now, maybe Jones says, okay, I want 30. Maybe you weren't prepared to go to 30. Maybe it's that Jones wants a deal that's almost fully guaranteed like Donald's. Okay. But if that's the case, like, let's say that is the case, and Jones says, I want 3 and 9 fully guaranteed. Chiefs say, look, we're not going to guarantee you a penny over 7. You're probably not bridging that gap unless somebody totally caves. So what is the option? I think the option then is, okay, well, guess what? You might play out this year, and then the Chiefs tag him at over $33 million next year. And then maybe you're talking about a tag and trade, something like that. But if you're Kansas City, you've got to figure out a way. Like, are you going to try and end this and be aggressive about ending this with a contract? Or do you just tell Chris Jones, we're done negotiating, we'll see you in camp when you get here?
Couple more minutes with Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated. Matt covers the entire National Football League for SI and SI.com. You can also find him on Twitter, where you can follow his handle at Matt Verderame. If the Chiefs can't get something done, and we are still, admittedly, quite a long way away from that being a possibility here, but would that be the first time that you can remember, Matt, that Brett Veach didn't get his guy?
Well, depends how you look at it. I can tell you for a fact, they really wanted to re-sign Cerverius Ford. They didn't get him. They went very, very hard into the early morning hours of free agency for Trent Williams a couple of years ago. After they signed Joe Tooney, they wanted them both. And they lost out. And maybe it's a San Francisco thing because they lost out to the Niners in both cases. They really wanted to re-sign Orlando Brown last offseason. And that didn't happen. Now, to be fair to the Chiefs offered him significantly more money than he ended up signing for in Cincinnati. So the Chiefs weren't wrong in that scenario. The Chiefs actually went above and beyond, and Brown should have, at least financially speaking, taken the deal. But the one thing with Veach, and he showed it with Tyreek Hill, he's got a number, and he's got a line, and he's not going to cross it. Now, does the pressure of all this and his holdout with everything else with Chris Jones and the fact that Jones doesn't play on offense with Mahomes, does that change some things? Perhaps. But I do think there's a world here, which I didn't think there was maybe a month ago, where the Chiefs just say, we're not going to pay you. It's not going to happen. And you're eventually going to come back, and we're not going to lose you for nothing next year. So you just swallow hard and deal with the tag and then move Jones for less than you should get for him, but at least you get something. But it's an ugly situation at this point. Not saying it can't be resolved. Maybe the Chiefs end up figuring it out with Jones. But I don't think it was expected that this was going to go on as long as it has.
Last thing I've got for you, Matt, I know you've already made some trips, talked about the Green Bay one earlier. You mentioned you were in Indianapolis recently as well. As we get further into training camp, do you have your own training camp tour on the docket?
Oh, I'm sitting here at stop 4 right now in Cleveland, where I basically feel like I jumped in a lake after being poured on for 2 hours, but that's part of the job. Yeah, I went, I'm in Cleveland. I was in Cincinnati yesterday. I was in Chicago already, Indianapolis already. Tomorrow I'm at a joint practice with the Lions and Giants up in Allen Park. And then I go to Minnesota on the 13th. I'm in Kansas City, or St. Joe's as it is, for the 15th. And then I'm back up to Green Bay. I was there for OTAs. I'll go back up, I believe it's on the 22nd for a practice with the Packers.
Real quick, just from a journalist, narrative, storytelling perspective, are any of those in particular interesting to you this year? I know you already wrote about Jordan Love and the Packers earlier on, the first time you were up there for OTAs, but between Cincinnati trying to get back to the Super Bowl, Cleveland is obviously there's a lot going on in Cleveland over the last 12 months, 24 months or so. And, the Lions are a fascinating team. I think the Giants this year are going to be fascinating too. Any of these in particular that you're especially interested in visiting this year?
The Lions rank right up there. I would say this. I was with the Bengals yesterday, talked to a bunch of players. I'm doing a feature on Lou Anarumo, and I got to say, I really enjoyed it. I finished it last night at the hotel. I really enjoyed that. They're a fascinating team to me. They're much like the Bills were a year ago, where you look at them and say, this might be the best roster they have in a while. Now, I think they've drafted better than Buffalo. Their secondary is young, really, really good. But, after this year, Boyd, Mixon, potentially Higgins, some other guy, like, who's coming back? So I'm fascinated by the Bengals, but I'm looking forward to getting on the Lions tomorrow. I think they're a team that, for a lot of reasons, obviously, are really interesting this year.
Make sure you're checking out all of Matt's work over at SI.com and in Sports Illustrated. Matt Verderame joins us every Monday here on 580 Sports Talk to talk about the NFL. Matt, we appreciate the time. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks a lot, guys. Take care.
That's Matt Verderame from SI.com. Let's take a break. We'll lead off the 4 o'clock hour talking some more college football here on 580 Sports Talk. 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk underway here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, as well as 104.9 FM. Listening online at 580WIBW.com, and of course on YouTube, where our channel is called Sports on 580 WIBW. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero here with you. We're off at 5:30 today. We've got some Royals baseball on the East Coast. We'll talk some Royals baseball in the 5 o'clock hour. Way better last week than this weekend. Not so great. Hey, number one play on SportsCenter yesterday was Michael Massey, Michael Garcia.
Yeah,
little turn at second base.
Collaboration up the middle. Yeah. That was a slick play. No, Royals had won 7 in a row while you were gone.
Mm-hmm.
And then middle of the bullpen caught up with them a little bit. You know, as it turns out, those guys who are 5 through 8 in your bullpen when you're a 36-win team in early August, they're not very good. And that was on full display on Saturday and Sunday. That's why the Royals lost those games.
I was a little bummed that I wasn't here for the trade deadline because the Royals got rid of everyone. Like it's a whole new roster pretty much at this point. What did they trade 7 guys? Was that what it was? They traded so many players. I had some thoughts on Jose Cuas that I was really hoping to share. Really wanted to get some Jose Cuas takes off. He's been okay for the Cubs.
Yeah.
Pitched 3 innings. Has not given up an earned run as of yet.
That's good.
So that's nice. Cubs needed an arm badly. So I'll take Jose Cuas. But yeah, we'll talk some Royals baseball and the latest on the boys in blue coming up in the 5 o'clock hour today. Here in this 4 o'clock hour of the program, we'll get to some college football, little Kansas Jayhawks football specifically. We'll hear a little bit from Lance Leipold, I think, in interesting and important take on realignment, also Jalon Daniels' health, and a little bit more in case you hadn't heard or seen. Jalon Daniels, some back tightness. We'll get the update from Lance Leipold here in just a little bit. We'll also get to the coaches poll that came out today. K-State in the poll. How about that? So we'll get
you got a vote.
K did get a vote.
A vote.
Awesome. Do we know who it was?
I haven't seen the individual ballots.
I'm going to do some scanning here. I want to know who voted for KU. That would be great to find out. The teams receiving 1 vote: Memphis, Kansas, James Madison. Very, very funny. So we'll touch on that here momentarily as well. We've also got our What Is Wrong With You coming up a little bit later on this hour. I missed a lot of good stories last week. Dan was filling me in before the show today about some of the bangers that I missed. So we'll get to that coming up later on today, or later on this hour, I should say. And we'll do our 580 Sports Talk headlines this hour today. We'll do them at the bottom of this hour. We'll talk Royals and talk to Mitch Holthus coming up in our 5 o'clock half hour. We're still taking your texts. Text line number, you know it, 785-272-9429. And also, the YouTube comment section is open. Our channel, as you well know at this point, is called Sports on 580 WIBW. Our pal Sam commented early on in the show, and he said, "Welcome back, Brendan. Dan got us to 300, though." So,
yeah, I did.
Hey, look, whatever it takes. That has been a passionate project for all of us here to get you guys some more video content, to try to bring the video to you, get you guys interested in it. And we're glad you have enjoyed it. We appreciate all of you who have subscribed. And whether you did it to spite me or to make Dan happy or whatever it was, however you got there, we appreciate that you have done that. This was also asked about in the YouTube comment section. We talked about it at the top of the 3 o'clock hour today. Some big news on the Sports Voice of Kansas and 580 Sports Talk. Beginning 1 week from today, Monday, August 14th, 580 Sports Talk is back to a 4-hour show. That is right. Our good pal Fulton Caster announced earlier on today that he is going to pursue some professional opportunities back home in his hometown of Wichita. So with the 3-man crew, we're going to go back to the good old days like they never even left. It'll be myself, it'll be Dan, it'll be Jake LeBon, 2 to 6 every single weekday for the return of the 4-hour edition of 580 Sports Talk. We're excited for it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to have the 3 of us back together doing the show every single day again. We're still going to have our same guest list. We'll even beef it up with some of our friends from Mic'd Up as well. Same games, same interviews, all the same fun we've always had. It'll just be for 4 hours and with a 3-person crew starting up on Monday next week.
And some of you have been rocking with us for a long time, and you remember what it was like when it was 4 hours from 2 to 6. And maybe you really enjoyed that. And I can assure you, not much about that fun that we had as a trio in the 4 hours is going to change. Like Brendan pointed out, it's going to be a lot of the same features, it's going to be a lot of the same great guests. It's going to be a lot of the same, tangents. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we're looking forward to having the Power Trio back for 4 hours. Like many of you, we will miss Fulton a great deal because he is a good dude and we like him a lot. And we're excited for where his professional opportunities take him next. But we're excited also to move on as a 3-person 4-hour radio program from 2 to 6.
We've got Vance in the YouTube comments who says, I remember when it was Bruce and Mark. Oh yeah. The good old days, as some would say. But no, we are happy to continue on the great tradition of 5A Sports Talk here on the oldest station in the state. And we are happy that we'll bring it back to 4 hours starting next week.
And we've had a couple of people in the text line as well from the 785, a couple of texts pointing out that they've really enjoyed the old format, the 4-hour 3-host format. And to you, we say thank you. And we appreciate that. We look forward to bringing it to you again starting next week.
We'll bring back some, maybe we'll have some more fun memories, like the time Jake said 587 like a time, or 578 like it was a time.
He said the Kentucky Derby was going to start at 578.
Or some of the other old classic moments.
Or the time we found out you didn't have any Tupperware. You've come a long way since then. You want to know how far back this goes.
Yeah. The me who started here in late summer 2017 and the me now of August 7th, 2023, much different person.
Yes. You went from not owning Tupperware, Jake pulling money out of his wallet on the air to give to you so that you could go get some Tupperware for your apartment. And now you're married and presumably own Tupperware. Lots of it.
A buttload of it. We have so much Tupperware.
That's a fact.
It's all that fits in our dishwasher. It's just Tupperware. The whole top of it is just Tupperware all the time.
I feel that.
Yes, a lot has changed in the last 6 years, but we're looking forward to that coming up on Monday, starting at 2:00 next Monday right here on 580 WIBW. Should we start with the poll or should we start with our good friend Lance Leipold?
Let's start with the poll.
All right. The coaches poll came out today for college football, the first official top 25 of the year. We do not have a unanimous number one, but it is darn near unanimous. The number one team in the country, the Georgia Bulldogs. Michigan, no first place votes, but they check in second. Alabama's third. They got 4 first place votes. Ohio State fourth. LSU fifth.
Ohio State also has a first place vote, worth noting.
Yes. Thank you. Rest of the top 10, USC, Penn State, Florida State, Clemson, and Tennessee. Your first Big 12 team in the poll, and last year in the Big 12, Texas checks in at number 12. Utah, future Big 12 team, currently Pac-12, they're 14th. TCU 16. The Kansas State Wildcats checking in at number 17. Oklahoma is 19th. Texas Tech is 24th. Kansas Jayhawks receiving a vote. They got 1 single vote. That's awesome. Good. I'm glad KU got some recognition. I was not expecting KU to be ranked in the poll for what it is worth. I assume the Jayhawks will get 1 or 2 votes probably from the media poll. Actually, you know what? I would be a little surprised if KU didn't get a few votes because KU football sort of became a darling team for a lot of media members on a national scale this past year after years and years of being mocked and kicked and a few votes. But overall, initial reactions to the poll, really initial reaction to where K-State lands at 17. I think that's pretty fair.
I do too.
I think you could make an argument if you wanted to flip K-State and TCU. I think I would hear that argument, honestly. But that's one spot. Notre Dame, Utah, Oregon, the teams that are 13 through 15. Yeah, I mean, I'm content with those. I don't think there's an overwhelmingly logical argument that no, Kansas State has to be in front of those programs. I think they deserve to be ahead of Oregon State, Oklahoma, North Carolina. No, I think this makes a lot of sense. And it's the right spot for K-State. And I think it's both respectful of what is coming back and what this team has accomplished, and also just low enough that K-State can pull the "they're not believing in us" card, which has been very good to them over the years.
Yeah, that's what you want, right? You want you want a little disrespect. You want a little of that in your preseason ranking, so you can be a little bit more motivated. I think it's about right if you consider. I mean, you look at the poll, and the voters decided that the best team in the Big 12, the highest ranking team in the Big 12 is 12th. Then yeah, but probably mid to low teens is where you're going to find the contenders in that league. And K-State's right there, one spot behind the TCU team they beat for the league championship that year. Honestly, I'm a little surprised Texas isn't higher. I thought they might. I thought they might sneak into the top 10 ahead of like Tennessee and Washington. Like that's kind of where I would have expected them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's not really too much to argue with or look askance at. I mean, Oklahoma is getting a lot of credit for being Oklahoma. I know they've got a lot back, but there's sometimes it's not good to have a lot back.
Yeah.
And they did turn over, a decent chunk of their roster too.
Mm-hmm.
But, they got their quarterback back, but they went 67 last year. How 19th? Interesting.
Yeah, get the Oklahoma bump.
Yeah. Texas Tech being in the poll is cool because I think that's acknowledgement of what Joey McGuire is building there in Lubbock, and the acknowledgement that they found ways to win last year. They were really good in close games. Like, and that is not always repeatable.
Right.
That is oftentimes the kind of thing that predicts regression the very next season. But man, I just love the way they play. I love the attitude they've got there. They're building something in Lubbock that's going to be just stubborn and difficult and hard to play against every year that Joey McGuire's there. So yeah, I love that they are ranked above Texas A&M and all their number one recruiting classes and all their VHTs from the from the Phil Steele annual. I love Tech being a spot above Texas A&M. That rules.
Can I ask an honest question? And it might not really make a difference because if your only thing you're bickering about is spot number 25 out of 25 in the poll, the voters probably did a pretty good job. The SIDs who put it together. Why does Texas A&M deserve to be ranked? Seriously, like what has Texas A&M done to make you believe, yes, this team should be considered one of the 25 best teams in college football entering the year? If
you go to Texas A&M's page on ESPN.com, like I just did, I clicked on Texas A&M because I wanted to see their schedule. So I went to Texas A&M's page on ESPN.com. And the top headline story on the Aggies page on ESPN.com is a story written 10 hours ago by Adam Rittenberg. And the title is College Football's Biggest Underachievers, Texas A&M Tops the List, which is so on the nose.
Yeah, I mean, can anyone argue with that? Look at all the number one recruits. Look at all the NIL money they pumped into all those recruits. And look at what it got them. Nothing.
We're going to find out pretty quick. They go to Miami week 2, and that feels like, that is a hype train express kind of game, isn't it? Like the winner of that game might be ranked in the top 15, if not the top 10 of the AP poll after that week.
That game is either going to end up being a legitimate turning point for one of those programs, or it is going to be Notre Dame, Texas 2016.
Yeah.
Where we thought, oh my God, college football is back. They are playing the hits. We've got superstars. Every high school program in the country is going to be trying to find their 18-wheeler Tyrone Swoops.
Yeah, go ahead
after this.
Go ahead and book Tyrone Swoops a flight to Manhattan, the downtown athletic club, for the Heisman ceremony, baby. Joe Tessitore made his career that night.
Yeah, he really did. and Joe Tessitore, to a degree, not his fault. It was a great moment, like, quote, in the moment, essentially ruined Texas football that night.
Yeah, he did.
By yelling, Texas is back. But on a serious note, like, the quarterbacks for Texas A&M, your two starting options are Connor Wiegman, who last year was not good in limited time, and Max Johnson, the transfer from LSU, who also was not good. Brad Johnson is often talked about as one of the all-time most game managers to win a Super Bowl. Max didn't get dad's talent, I don't think. That's it. Like, they lost their best player in Devin Achane.
Yeah, he was their whole offense last year. So yeah, I don't know how it's going to work out for Texas A&M. They were just ahead of Iowa. Iowa was first team out of the top 25, which is very funny. That's the best subplot of this season, that Brian Ferentz has to score 300 points or he loses his job. Iowa has to score essentially 30 points a game.
This is like Saw, but football, right?
I was talking to Fulton about it. I compared it to speed. Like the bus can't get below 55 miles an hour. Like the offense can't go below 30 points a game. We're going to be watching their point totals. They're going to leave their first team out there. I don't know what 1AA team or whatever they play early in the year. They're going to leave their first team out there. Then again, they only put 7 points on South Dakota State last year. Wasn't that on 2 safeties and a field goal? Mm-hmm. So maybe it won't matter. They got a competent quarterback this year, though, so we'll see.
Iowa, or the Big Ten, outlawed FCS games a year or two ago. So they're actually playing, their non-con is Utah State, Iowa State, Western Michigan. That's not especially easy. That might be tough. I cannot wait for Iowa to need like 3 points against Nebraska in Lincoln to save Brian Ferentz's job, and Matt Rule puts together like a 12-minute drive. We're going to run for 3 yards at exactly 40 seconds every single time, and we are not going to give up the ball. We're going to go for it on 4th down. You will not get the ball.
Broader point being, as we tie a bow on it, that being ranked 25th is kind of a sign of, we think you're supposed to be good. We just don't know what to do with you.
Awesome. Great spot to be in.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I think this season is going to be awesome. It sucks that so much of the realignment stuff has really overshadowed what should be an awesome college football season.
And don't worry, we're going to talk more alignment a little bit later on.
Oh yeah,
we got some news.
By the by, let's get to Lance Leipold and what he had to say today, including a question he was asked about realignment. He was asked about Jalon Daniels' health. Let's get to that. Here are some of the highlights from what Lance Leipold had to say earlier on today.
We were talking to Jordan Peterson yesterday about the new additions to the Big 12, what that meant recruiting-wise. I was curious from your perspective, what do you think those additions mean for you?
Well, again, I think we've added a total of 4 quality schools with, great universities, each in their own traditions. Probably talk with Jordan because he's recruiting in Arizona for us, and that of, Logan Brantley is one from Colorado, so we've been able to do there. Utah's probably an area we've dabbled in a little bit, but I think anything that helps the total profile and brand of our conference will help our university. So that's exciting. I think it's going to be interesting how that landscape changes, and I think it'll. I was able to. As you know, we've had former players at our house before the spring game, and the first year I was really intrigued and surprised by the amount of players that still live in this area that were from California and things like that. So I think the whole thing of depending on the future of the Pac-12, what all the West, everything West can be for us recruiting wise, and things that we're going to take good hard looks at.
Does any of this recent realignment surprise you in any way, or do you just see this as sort of how things are going?
I don't know what surprises you anymore when it comes to I just think the way things have kind of worked for a while, you kind of still, hear and talk, and, between realignment and whether it be TV contracts and whatever, I think you're always understanding that things may happen. And so is it over? I don't know. And, I just, from our standpoint, meaning the Big 12, I think our commissioner's done an outstanding job, the presidents as well, and what they've been doing and chancellors to stabilize our conference, and which wasn't the view, 2 months into my job here, is that all of a sudden it was what's happening next. So I think we put ourselves on a good foundation.
And we didn't see Jalon at practice today. Do you have any update?
Oh, he was there. He just didn't take any reps today. He's got some back tightness right now. So we're just again, working through that, and he's there. He's doing some stuff, but yeah.
And is there kind of a timeline with this?
No, we're just seeing where it's I trust the training staff. He threw some yesterday, and then we're going through. It's there's you don't want this with any of our guys, but Luke Grimm's kind of been slow.
And is there kind of a timeline with this back tightness thing?
No, this is it. No, we're just seeing where it's I trust the training staff. He threw some yesterday. Luke Grimm's kind of been slowed down. This guy, there's different things, and I'm sure I'm going to have a list here at 1:00 when we meet as a staff with some other little bumps and bruises. Got to be smart. What are we going to fight through? What can be monitored? Yeah, it's nothing to be, if I'm saying it, a week or so from now, then we can probably dive in deeper.
Coach, want to go back to the 4 new additions. You touched on the 4 specific ones.
Yep.
Just curious your thoughts as a whole on the realignment stuff. Some people think it's great. Some people think it's ruining college sports. Maybe you're somewhere in the middle, or maybe you don't have time to worry about it, but I just want to get your opinion.
Yeah, I think it's to be determined. It's funny. I've kind of seen some of that same thing that's ruined it, but everybody's been talking about it for how long? It's when everybody was talking about super conferences and all this realignment, I didn't see a lot of people write articles and commentaries that it was going to ruin it. Now it's happening, and now it's ruining. So I don't know. I'm not sure where it's totally going to land as far as conferences and how many and where it plays out. That's and I kind of look back at where it used to be and what it was, and where I kind of spent most of my career. I don't know. I'm probably too far, too late to the game to have a pure feeling on that. But I'm still a guy that had to ride buses 15 hours one direction. So, I've been there, done that, and I know it's part. Sometimes that's part of it. I don't know, good or bad, where we're at with travel, but just hope it makes it better for everyone. I think a lot of this is allowed, has helped universities and helped athletic departments, and now, or have we spread it too thin? I guess we'll find out.
Before reacting to what Coach Leipold actually had to say, can I just say that I really appreciate that both Lance Leipold and Chris Kleiman are so normal. Like, they're just normal guys. There are so many football coaches who are insane. Like, how do you breathe and live a normal life? Like, Nick Saban doesn't. And I know he's probably the greatest coach of all time, but he's a freak. Like, he does nothing but watch the Weather Channel
and recruit
and eat his 2 oatmeal cream pies every morning. And yes, that is true. That he actually does that. Like, they're weird. Like, Kirby Smart is a weirdo. Mm-hmm. Jimbo Fisher is a bizarre person.
Yes.
I like to make fun of Eli Drinkwitz, but he won't shut up, and he's weird and dorky. Like, Lance Leipold and Chris Kleiman are very normal people, and I appreciate that a great deal. And they're thoughtful, and I thought that was a very reasonable and reasoned opinion about realignment. That I can feel that it is a bad thing. Someone else might feel, no, this is great. We're going to have, we don't have to worry about all sorts of conferences. More conferences is bad. I think this is a good thing. We don't know. And I think it is very rational to just say, hey, look, we're going to take care of our business. We don't know how it's going to work out, but let's see how it unfolds. I think that is, it's totally basic, but it's fair.
It's a reasonable way to look at it. And probably if you're from the Big 12 perspective right now, you think you probably came out of it okay, because you haven't, at least in this round of realignment, added any crazy travel for anybody. Mm-hmm. Obviously West Virginia's been in the league now. Like, you're kind of used to the West Virginia trip, and now, UCF's not exactly next door either, but you're used to having that one outlier, but now you only have 2. Like, this is not like now Oregon has to play Rutgers. There's a big difference between that and between Kansas is going to play Arizona or Utah. Like, there's a little bit more sanity to that.
Yeah.
So I understand that being the perspective from the Kansas side.
Any worry about Jalon Daniels?
He didn't sound real worried. Leipold didn't. So you'd rather not, because backs are real tricky. You'd rather not be dealing with a back thing. But sounds like it's just management and understanding that, maybe we don't need to go super hard, and we can take things easy with our returning starting quarterback.
Lance Leipold knows, and this phrase isn't used quite as much in college as it is in the pros. He knows who the franchise is, and it's Jalon Daniels. Like, if there's one piece you can't lose and that you are also simultaneously going to hitch your wagon to any day of the week, it is number 6. And if that means, hey, he's not going to practice a whole lot while we make sure his back is okay, I think Lance Leipold is just fine with that. So, yeah, I'm not too worried about that either. We'll talk some K-State coming up tomorrow. We'll talk KU, too. Michael Swain will join us. It will be Tuesday, after all. But we'll also hear from Chris Kleiman, hopefully, on tomorrow's show.
Chris Kleiman's first press conference fall camp is tomorrow. So we'll hear from Chris Kleiman.
I imagine we'll get his thoughts on realignment as well.
I feel like it'll come up.
Coming up on the other side of this break, we've got today's edition of What Is Wrong With You, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply here on 580 Sports Talk. It's good to be back with another What Is Wrong With You. I missed that over the past week. You were informing me, Dan. Brendan and Dan here, by the way. It's 580 Sports Talk. You were informing me of last week's winner.
Yes, the oblivious boyfriend went wire to wire. Gentleman from San Antonio whose girlfriend asked to meet him at a gas station and met him there with some guys with guns who shot at the boyfriend in question. He was not harmed, hit, or grazed in any way, which meant he was in perfect condition when 4 hours later his girlfriend asked him to meet him at her house, where there were maybe different guys with guns, maybe the same guys. All I know is it was guys, they had guns. He got shot at again. This time he got hit. took a couple to the leg. Thankfully, no further damage done. But yes, the Oblivious Boyfriend, our wire-to-wire winner last week.
That is a strong winner. Who won the month?
Oh, our monthly champ, the fake firefighter was our July champion. Yes.
Man, that story was a banger.
So good.
Loved that story.
So good. Narrowly edged the TikTok judge in a hotly contested final.
I do want to remind you that What Is Wrong With You, as always, is brought to you by our good friends at Top City Metal Supply, who cuts the metal you need to your specifications, saving time, money, and material. Never settle when it comes to metal at Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard. I am going to go first because I haven't gotten to do one of these in a little while. And we are heading down to Bushnell, Florida, Dan, where for the second time in the last year, a deceased widow has been interred in the wrong or with the wrong late husband at the Florida National Cemetery.
Twice in a year?
The Veterans Cemetery, which is in the town of Bushnell, came under scrutiny last August when the remains of a woman were mistakenly mixed with the wrong veterans' cremains. I had never seen this word before. Cremains?
Yes, ashes, essentially. Yeah. Nicer way to say it.
Then, this summer, just a matter of weeks ago, there was another mistake. A widow's casket was found in a crypt with the wrong late husband.
Okay. I'm a little relieved because when I read that first headline, I thought they'd put the woman in the wrong place twice.
I thought the same thing. Jack Hales, a Texas attorney who specializes in cemetery and funeral home negligence, that sounds really depressing. I'm going to be honest, Mr. Hales, called the mistakes horrendous. Quote, it's a very special type of trust that you're giving, and it opens that floodgate for what else was wrong. If they said they fixed it, can I trust that that fix really happened? Local morticians who were contacted by WFLA TV declined to comment on the mix-ups due to their working relationships with the cemetery. The most recent mistake was discovered in June. A widow from the Tampa Bay area who died at nearly 80 years old had previously made plans to be buried with her late husband. But when his grave vault was opened, there was already a second casket inside. During the scheduling of a subsequent burial at a veteran spouse, we discovered the already interred remains of an unclaimed spouse with a similar name as that of the veteran. It only gets worse from there. The families have been notified of the incident, and it was allegedly resolved quickly. But I kind of agree with the attorney here. Prove that you fixed it.
Yeah, prove it, but also I don't want to be around for how you prove it.
Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true.
Yeah, that's a little grim.
Yeah,
for me.
That's messed up.
Nah, just do it right the first time would be what I would request. Just, no room for sloppiness in the funeral and remain handling business.
No kidding.
Be on your job.
What do you have for today?
We're staying in Florida. We got double Florida day on this Monday of 580 Sports Talks. What is wrong with you? We're going to Panama City Beach, and a Georgia man who broke into a church there had an unusual encounter in the baptismal. Derek Porter used a cinder block to smash a window at the Emerald Beach Church of God on Alf Coleman Road and got inside Friday morning. A woman working in the church heard the sound and fled. While inside, Porter caused approximately $8,000 worth of damage to the church, then loaded several electronics, including a television and a computer, into his truck, along with the church's money bag. Deputies and officers with the Panama City Beach Police Department descended on the church and arrested Porter. They say they found, say it with me, meth and drug paraphernalia on him. Those items may or may not explain an incident that occurred while Porter was rummaging through the facility. Deputies wrote in the arrest report, Porter stated he could not remember what happened during various moments inside the church. He did remember, however, baptizing himself in the church's baptistry pool. Porter claims something, and there are air quotes there, was holding his head down under the water while in the pool. Porter wasn't the only one who used the baptistry Friday. Body camera footage released by the sheriff's office shows deputies making contact with Porter and clearing the church. While inside, a BCSO canine decided to beat the heat and cool off in the baptismal.
That's really funny.
Porter's now charged. The image of a dog. Man, it's hot out there.
Look, man, dogs are going to drink from toilets. Like, they'll drink from the baptismal.
He unholied the holy water. It's a line from The Simpsons. Porter's now being charged with burglary of an occupied structure, criminal mischief, possession of meth, and possession of drug paraphernalia.
The concept of the church's money bag is very funny to me. I just think of a big burlap sack with a dollar sign painted on it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what else that would look like.
Yeah, like they're like a plain zipper bag, probably
Okay.
one of those zipper bags,
Like a business would have?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's probably
All right. That makes
that's
a little
probably
bit
what
more
they've
sense.
got. The good news for Porter is that if he did everything correctly, his soul has been cleansed. He has been forgiven in the eyes of his new Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
By the way, in today's update of really bad spam ads at the bottom of our What Is Wrong With You stories, I've got one today that says, she was a legendary TV icon. Now she works 9 to 5. And it's a picture of Lily from the AT&T commercials, and it's very badly photoshopped.
He was an NBA legend. Now he's working 9 to 5, and it's a picture of Chris Birdman Anders.
All right, that one's a little believable. Do we know what Birdman's up to these days?
I think he's playing a lot of golf. Birdman likes to play golf.
Good for Birdman. Yeah, I'm going to go with the meth-fueled baptismal here. The meth-fueled baptism.
He baptized himself.
He was feeling the spirit. I get it. Sometimes you just...
Yeah. Hey,
you
know
feel the
what?
spirit talking to
I'm
you.
going to steal from these good people and desecrate this church, but my Savior forgives me.
I'm going to sin and then cleanse myself of it.
Yes.
It wasn't a good plan, but I kind of see the logic.
Yeah,
to be completely honest
you see
with
the vision, right?
I kind of get it. That is our winner, the meth-fueled self-baptism that wins today in What Is Wrong With You. Brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. That's Top City Metal Supply, which you can find on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field.
Shout out to you for being able to say the word boulevard correctly. I had so much trouble with it early in the week.
It is hard. When Top City Metal Supply first jumped in and wanted to be a part of What Is Wrong With You, I said boulevard, I think, like 10 times in a row.
I don't even know. I don't even know what first letter I was saying. It was like boulevard or something. I couldn't get it out of my mouth right.
At least they don't have rural somewhere in there. Like a quick rural is one of the hardest words to say,
Yes,
I think.
Please don't ever make me say rural boulevard.
Rural boulevard. We're going to practice that, saying it 5 times fast during the break.
Those are our verbal exercises.
When we come back, though, we've got today's 580 Sports Talk headlines here on 580 Sports Talk.
Oh, we finally made
and Dan here with you on 580 Sports Talk on this Monday, August 7th. Two of us back together again. Good to be back after vacation. It was a nice trip. It was a fun trip. But it's nice to be back. Missed What Is Wrong With You, among other things. Also missed a bunch of realignment news, and the latest on that front is where we are going to begin our 580 Sports Talk headlines for today. Going to get to these a little bit early. We're off at 5:30 today for Royals baseball. So next hour, we'll talk some Royals, and we will talk to Mitch Holthus for our Chiefs training camp report. But our first headline, and the biggest one today, it comes from Pete Thamel of ESPN, who said earlier today, came out just about 2 o'clock, sources, this is on Twitter, X, whatever, in the next 24 hours, there's 2 calls for the ACC to vet and have early exploratory discussions on the potential addition of Cal and Stanford. One is for ACC athletic directors. The other is for the league's presidents and chancellors. Thamel then goes on to say it's a fluid landscape for the 4 leftover Pac-12 schools, and there's myriad options being discussed. This is one of them. I can see why there would be some interest from a non-football and really non-basketball perspective for the both of them, especially Stanford. You mentioned it earlier. Stanford has been a breeding ground for Olympians and actually standout women's soccer players, too. A lot of good ones have come out of Stanford. And
Cal, too. I mean, Cal has also turned out a lot of Olympians in what we would consider the non-revenue sports. Like they have done really, really well in those sports. And it would be strange for like those schools, like those programs need a place to compete. And for that reason, it would make some sense. And there are some schools that, while not great, they're not completely identical to the kind of schools that Stanford and Cal are. There are probably people at the University of North Carolina, not necessarily saying UNC Athletics, but the University of North Carolina, who say, no, we actually believe we are peers to them academically, or at least fairly similar. Yeah.
Duke would probably feel at least fairly similar academically.
They would.
Virginia, definitely. So there's a lot of that, which I think would make some sense. Now, would they feel the same way about like Boston College? Probably not. Would they feel the same way about Pitt? Probably not. Those are good schools. Don't get me wrong. Those are very good universities. But in terms of like when you mention Cal and Stanford, you know what we're talking about. Like there's kind of an aura about them.
Yes, academically speaking.
Yeah. That like you're all brilliant, but you're also really snooty. Like that's just kind of what they are. So I can understand it from those 2 points for sure. But also the money just cannot possibly make sense for those programs. And they're fairly or unfairly called non-revenue for a reason. And yes, they need somewhere to go. Those are important for the United States sports landscape. But man, that is a lot of travel, a lot of money, and you're not going to be competitive in football, which is the driver, whether they like it or not.
Yeah, like you're not going to bring enough to the table football-wise for the revenue per school from a television perspective to go up appreciably. So you're settling, if you're Stanford or Cal, for like a partial and look, the endowments at those schools are so preposterous. Like they can survive if they're not making $50 million a year in their TV deal.
Right.
Like they would have been fine with that 25 mil a year from Apple, or 23 million, whatever. It was 23 million, I think.
Yeah.
They would have been fine with that. Honestly, they would have signed that deal. If it were just up to them, the Pac-12 would still be alive. But yes, now we are very clearly getting into nobody really thinks this is a good idea, but we don't feel like we have a choice in the matter. Cal and Stanford don't have a choice in the matter if they want to remain affiliated with power conference athletics. ACC may not have a choice in the matter if they want to expand, if they want to be in different TV windows, if they want to get to 16 teams. They're running out of real good options. And they've got to make Florida State happy because Florida State's got a gun to that conference's head right now, talking about they're going to leave or they're going to raise venture capital to run their athletic department, which that's its own set of problems.
Big time. By the way, you want to talk endowment here? Cal's is very big. It's just under $7 billion. It is the third biggest in the current Pac-12, only behind USC and Stanford. Stanford's endowment is larger than the combined endowment of every other Pac-12 school. That is 11 major research universities and some of the best universities in the country, and all of them combined less than Stanford's, which is $37.8 billion.
So you might be wondering to yourself, well, hey, what about the Big 12? I mean, they've just gone to 16 teams. They've expanded west. Why not go further west? Why don't they give Cal or Stanford a home? Why don't they explore that? Per Brett McMurphy of the Action Network, Big 12 has, quote, no appetite to add any of Pac-4 schools or San Diego State, sources told Action Network. We have no interest in doing anything, source said. We're done.
There's a part of me that wants the Big 12 to say, you know what, screw it, let's do it. Let's just become a 20-team league. Let's just own everything west of the Mississippi. And part of me would really love that because you can keep those rivalries.
Mm-hmm.
Travel would make a little bit more sense. You could keep programs that I have an emotional attachment to in the Pacific Northwest from becoming essentially G5 schools. But
and
also,
you could do 2 10-team divisions. You know, the Pac whatever, that Pac-9 that come over to the Big 12 plus Tech, and that's your Western division. Everything else is the Eastern division.
Yeah, that would easily make sense. But also, every school is going to lose money if they do that. And while I hate that is what this is all based on, I mean, I get it. You're not no school is going to say, yeah, let's voluntarily give up $7 million or whatever to bring in the land grant schools. Speaking of, by the way, additionally, this is according to Eric Prisbell of On3. The American Athletic Conference, according to sources, is interested in adding any or all of the 4 remaining Pac-12 schools. So that would include Cal, Stanford, Oregon State, and Washington State. The AAC has gone through some changes, obviously. A lot of realignment has impacted them. They would instantly add 2 of their best programs if they were able to add any of the 2 of those schools. They're mostly concentrated in the center of the country and on the eastern seaboard, so that travel would be unbearable.
There's already one California school in the league. Sac State, Sacramento State women's rowing.
Ah, yes. Of course. They
wouldn't have to change their name.
Yeah, that's true. That is definitely true. I don't know. I feel like what still makes the most sense out there is just partnering up with the Mountain West and just merging.
Trying to maintain your Autonomy 5 status.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that because right now there's the buyouts for teams who leave the Mountain West and join the Pac-12 are such that like it would have to be the Mountain West absorbing the Pac-12 and the Pac-12 ceasing to exist. And so you lose that autonomy, Autonomy 5 status. If you wait a year and everybody's buyout is,
smaller,
substantially smaller.
Maybe make that happen.
There's been some talk about the Pac-12 maybe trying to add like 2 teams for next year because you could be a 6-team league. You have to have 6. That's the limit. So they could add a couple of teams for next year and then merge with the Mountain West.
Maybe that works.
And go forward that way.
Yeah. It's tough sledding.
But it is very funny to imagine the Conference of Champions welcoming in like UC Davis.
Yeah.
Or UTSA.
Full member Sacramento State. Yeah, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Although UTSA going from no football 15 years ago to Conference USA to the American to the Pac-12 in like 3 years, it would be one of the greatest stories in college football history.
It really would.
Easily.
And they're going to win the AAC this year. Like they're very
awesome.
good.
Frank Harris is 35 years old, but damn, he can play quarterback. We've got just half an hour left today on 580 Sports Talk. We'll talk a little Royals and we'll chat with the voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holthus, coming up after this on 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, welcome to the final half hour of 580 Sports Talk on this Monday afternoon. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. He is Dan Lucero. We are done early today due to Royals baseball against the Red Sox. We're off early 4 days in a row this week.
4 straight 6:10 first pitches at the Fens. So that means we're done at 5:30.
The Fens?
Yes, that's what they call it.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah.
Genuinely did not know that. Well, one way or the other, Royals Red Sox coming up tonight. Pregame at 5:30, first pitch at 6:10. So we're out of here a little bit early. We'll talk to Mitch Holthus coming up at 5:15. It's just about 10 minutes from now. Again, the big news of the day. We'll make sure that everybody knows this as we head into next week. After this week comes to a close, so as of Monday, August 14th, 1 week from today, 580 Sports Talk will be back to a 4-hour program, 2 to 6 every single weekday. Brendan, Dan, and Jake LeBon, the old three getting back together every single day. Fulton is going to pursue some career interests back in his hometown down in South Central Kansas and Wichita. So the three of us going to put our heads together and get back together for 4 hours every single day of 580 Sports Talk. That begins at 2 o'clock next Monday right here on 580 WIBW. Before we get to Mitch Holthus and our Chiefs training camp report brought to you by Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union, the Kansas City Royals were killing it for most of the time I was gone. They won 7 games in a row.
Sure did.
Awesome stuff. Offense looked great. Got some decent pitching. Great. The last couple of days, not so much. Not nearly as fun.
It's all about pitching, isn't it? I mean, they had the 6-game run where the starting pitching was outstanding. And then over the weekend, starting pitching wasn't so outstanding. And the relief pitching was even worse than that. And that's how the Royals came to lose 9-6 on Saturday, and how they came to lose, I believe it was 8-4 yesterday, ended up being the final score. So that middle of the Royals bullpen, not so nice. Rough day yesterday for John Heasley and James MacArthur. Although MacArthur did manage to lower his ERA. After he gave up 7 runs in his first major league inning, this was an improvement. This represented an improvement for him, giving up a run in 2 innings of work. His ERA now down to a tidy even 24.
Nice.
That's 24.00. Saturday, it was Tucker Davidson and Angel Zerpa in relief of Alec Marsh. Only gave him 4 innings. Davidson gave up 2. Zerpa gave up 4. And that was all she wrote. Looked like a stirring victory on the way for the Royals. They led that game 6-3, but very much got away from them then. Again in the middle innings, which at the very least, those 4 guys I gave you are young guys. We are now fully engaged in the portion of the season where whatever happens with the Royals, if it's good, it's progress for a young player. And if it's bad, it's something for that young player to learn from and improve on. Unless we're talking about Zach Greinke or Salvador Perez.
Yeah. The one biggest highlight, and I know he went hitless in the game on, what would that have been? On the 5th. So that was 2 days ago. Bobby Witt Jr. had a 7-game hitting streak in which he hit .531. That's awesome. It feels like if he hasn't arrived, like he is in the process of opening the door. Yeah, like it feels like it has really come together for Witt. And that's great. I mean, that is what you needed this year. Of all the things you could have hoped to have seen, all the things that we would have wanted to see going into this year, the one thing we needed to see was it truly click for Bobby Witt Jr. And it has. And he's now worth for the season just under 3 wins above replacement. So he'll pass that number over a Baseball Reference by the end of the year. That's good. That's a good number for him for this year, considering he played all of last year and was worth 0.9 wins above replacement. So the fact that there have been some moments this year where it has not been super great, but the fact that he has been so good as of late, awesome. The Royals needed that, and if nothing else, that's a reason to keep watching. So you can watch that guy keep playing.
Yeah, and he might win a Gold Glove, which is something else.
Yeah,
that could actually happen for him, which is pretty cool. He really might go on and win a Gold Glove.
What did you think about the moves the Royals made at the deadline? I mean, it was nothing earth-shattering. I was joking about the Jose Cuas deal earlier on, which has been fine for the Cubs so far. How have you felt about, and with the benefit of a week of hindsight now, about what the Royals did to clear some money, to move on from players that weren't sticking around, to restock the farm system?
I mean, it could have been better. I didn't love, like, the Nicky Lopez for Taylor Hearn trade was just bad. I thought all the way around, bad process. No sense in getting back a guy who's got the same amount of team control as the guy you're trading away.
Yeah.
And an unknown quantity. I understand trading Nicky Lopez, like the thought behind trading Nicky Lopez was not bad, but trading for Taylor Hearn when you could have had him after he was DFA'd the week before for just a pile of cash, it was really, really weird. It was just bad. An indefensible move by the Royals. But then I thought they acted, proactively, and they were able to move Ryan Yarbrough, which was a nice surprise. I didn't think they would be able to find a taker for him, and to trade Scott Barlow as well. I think those trades served to, I mean, they're not going to make the Royals contenders overnight or completely turn around the farm system, but they were able to stock it a little bit better with those two guys. So that was definitely a plus as well.
You'll take it. I mean, you had to do something. And honestly, I would rather do sort of a soft reset and just move a bunch of guys. Like, being able to move Yarbrough was great.
Yes.
Did anyone expect that was going to be a thing this year? Like, did anyone think he was going to be more than just a total afterthought?
Certainly not me.
No, he ended up being pretty decent for the Royals, and obviously decent enough that they were actually able to get something for him. Cole Reagans, I didn't check his last outing, but it feels like that's been an okay return so far.
Yeah, two really impressive starts. He goes again tonight. He'll be on the mound for the Royals against the Red Sox tonight. So far, so good. Two really promising starts. Kind of remind me of Danny Duffy a little bit watching him pitch. Like, stylistically, there's a little bit of Danny Duffy to him. That fastball sitting in the mid to upper 90s. He's spotting it well. A couple of different breaking balls he's using to keep guys off balance. There might be something there. He's going to be, I think, worth checking out here in these final 2 months to see what kind of progress he makes and see if maybe he gets a stake as one of the future members of this pitching rotation.
Very small sample size so far, just 2 starts, only pitched 11 innings. So 1 run allowed in 11 innings. That's probably not something that's super repeatable as time goes on. But again, small sample, but the fielding independent numbers, those look pretty good. He's not walking too many guys, 2.5 walks per 9 through his first 11 innings, striking out a guy per inning. You'll take those numbers. You'll absolutely take those numbers. So overall, I mean, I felt pretty positively about it. And again, you're not looking for guys who are going to take you to suddenly a point of contention. You know, this wasn't a team like the Angels or the Cubs who said, you know what, we're going to go for it. We're going to see if we can make this work. For one of those teams, it absolutely has. The Cubs are as hot as anyone in baseball. The Angels have not won a game since the trade deadline.
No.
They are 0-6.
Yeah, that's tough. It turns out when the team you're taking all your players from is the worst team in the National League, it's not going to make you a whole lot better.
Yeah, it also turns out that playing 2 teams that are crappy and winning a bunch of games against them back-to-back is not necessarily proof that you're actually any good, and it's right to go for it.
Right.
I appreciated the process. We might as well try while we have Ohtani. I don't think it's going to work, though. Sometimes that happens in baseball. We have to get to a quick break here in our final half hour of the show, and on the other side of this timeout, we will talk to the voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holthus, here on 580 Sports Talk.
Today.
time for our favorite part of the day here on 580 Sports Talk this time of year. It is time for our Chiefs training camp report with the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, Mitch Holthus, brought to you by our good friends at Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. Ask Haven Byrne, Crystal Rippey, or Melissa Hunter about using the Credit Union Advantage for your home loan at Azura Credit Union. Mitch, great to talk to you, my friend. I was on vacation all last week, so no, Dan was solo holding down the fort. How have you been, Mitch?
Or Wally, is this Wally Pipp? I don't know who this is. Dan did a great job in your stead. Good to have you back. But Dan was phenomenal in the role. But yeah, heck yeah. I hope your vacation went well. And yeah, we're in the throes of this. We've been here since July the 19th, and obviously our second week on these reports.
And second week is a perfect time, Mitch, to talk about some second-year players. And the theme for this week's training camp reports, players who were rookies a year ago. And I think it's fair to say, Mitch, and we'll get to one of those standout players in particular, even after the draft last year, when we thought, hey, this is a pretty good class, like the talent, love the value, because we always talk about value when it comes to the draft, like a lot of it, I'm not sure anyone knew at the time that this class would be, A, that good as rookies, and B, that impactful to the point where almost every single member of that class made an impact on the Super Bowl champions all the way through from week one, really from the preseason all the way through the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl and AFC championship record with 8 rookies playing on defense and special teams, and then you throw in 2 prominent players on offense like Sky Moore and Isaiah Pacheco, and you have 10. Any given game, you only have 46 guys, 47 guys that are active. So you've got, 1/4 of your team last year that won a Super Bowl as rookies. Now, that's one thing. The second thing is the NFL doesn't wait, pat you on the back and go, way to go. I remember my first year, going into my second year in the league, Marty Schottenheimer's like, good year, kid. You had a good year, but you better be twice as good this year as you were. To be just as good as you were last year. So message received by the late Marty Schottenheimer. But you also have to look, whether it's you guys or any pundit or any analysis, how can the Chiefs stay on top of the AFC with all of these challengers? Everybody's more in than ever. The Jets are in now. They weren't in a year ago. They're in. Everybody's just cashing in their chips. So how can the Chiefs maintain where they're at, try to win another Super Bowl, and try to stay on top of the AFC? And that's why this week is a big one. The thesis is the second-year player. These guys that you talked about, the 10 players, can they be better the second year? Well, we've already lost one. Najee Johnson's down with an ACL injury. But I'm seeing ascension by all of these guys. The most encouraging piece of this training camp has been our thesis of this week. I am seeing every one of these second-year guys jump up and really leading the way. No lies, why I'm starting on this Monday with George Karlaftis.
I mean, it's a huge jump mentally, physically. You kind of know what's expected. You know the guys, you know the system, and it's been great. Feel great. All of these year 2 guys, trying to do our part, because a lot of us have played, and welcoming in these rookies and these new guys, and just trying to do our part to make this team the best it possibly can be.
Watching this spring and summer, though, I thought, this defense could go to another level. Where could this defense go?
Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of guys with a lot of experience. You got that, and you got trust from the coaches. I mean, the sky's the limit.
The sky is the limit. But let's look at what happened last year with them. 5.5 sacks in the last 7 weeks of the regular season, a sack in the playoffs. The 7 passes defense, that was the best of any rookie in the National Football League last year, George Karlaftis. And then his pressure rate among rookies was second only to Aiden Hutchinson of the Detroit Lions. I mean, Chris Jones had a phenomenal year last year, but it really overshadowed what was an outstanding rookie year by George Karlaftis.
And I think for me, Mitch, the thing that is the most encouraging and the most exciting about George is the fact that we knew coming in, we knew when he was coming out of Purdue, he was big, he was physical, he was strong, but he's a great athlete too. He's not just, a big guy. He's a big athlete, and that's so valuable coming off the edge. So he already had that, and he has a great rookie year. But with another year of experience and getting up to the incredible speed of the NFL game, another year of working with the Chiefs staff and getting the body right, getting it into peak shape and what he can be at his peak, he was that good as a rookie, and now he's got all of those other things benefiting him going into year 2.
He's better this year. He's quicker. He's stronger. He seems to be a little more athletic. Two things. We joke about his water polo days in Greece, and he was excited this year because he's the prime minister of Greece. Like, he's looking for every head of state in the world. He's a phenomenal dude, just George. But the second thing is, when you look at passes defensed, to have that many, that is a key stat, because I've told you guys time and time again, it's the most devastating play that we don't pay attention to in statistics defensively. Because if you watch video, I don't care if you're doing a Topeka High game or you're doing the 3A or 2A state, 1A state championship with St. Mary's and Inman, a tip pass many times is taking away at least a 10 or 20 yard gain from the offense. They'll have the perfect play called, and then all of a sudden a pass, and it's not just knocking it down at the line of scrimmage. It's affecting the physics and aerodynamics of the throw. And that's what Karlaftis does. That's the sign of an athletic defensive edge player. Yes, getting sacks. We'll play fantasy football with sacks. But if you have a really good fantasy football league, somewhere in there that passes defensed by a defensive lineman would be extra points.
Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, joining us here on 580 Sports Talk. His training camp reports brought to you by Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. Does a leadership role begin to take shape for guys now who are in year two, like George Karlaftis? Because very much last year, he was the student, and there were veteran guys on that roster who aren't currently on the roster, like Frank Clark and Carlos Dunlap, that he could pick their brains and learn from. Have you seen, or do you think that George has the capability to then take that and be a leader moving forward and to pass down the things that he has learned and start to mentor, whether it's guys who are still looking for that big breakout like Malik Herring, maybe rookies like BJ Thompson? Is there a leadership role possible and something that might be embraced by George?
If you're around George Karlaftis for 5 minutes or more, you realize he could be prime minister of Greece or a head of state or president of the United States. He's really a bright guy who has the ability to connect and to lead. Now, on the defense right now, the alpha dog, and I brought him up last week, is Nick Bolton. But not far behind is Karlaftis, because the Chiefs play this plethora of defensive sets, this combination of safeties and linebackers and corners. Well, the same goes up front. I mentioned that they're as sophisticated on defense or close to it as they are on offense. They just don't get enough credit doing it. But the mainstay is Bolton. The second mainstay is Karlaftis. He rarely leaves the field, whether the Chiefs are in some exotic, defensive with nickel, dime, and combinations. He's usually out there. Now, he can move inside and out, but Karlaftis and Bolton, to answer your question, are the two leaders right now of this defense.
And on that defensive front in particular, Mitch, when you look at how much youth there is, we're not just talking about at the end spots where obviously you have Felix Anudike-Uzomah, who was the first-round pick, BJ Thompson, the fifth-rounder out of Stephen F. Austin, both of whom I think can be really good NFL players. But even you look inside, and Keandre Coburn, the defensive tackle from Texas, who was, I believe, the sixth-round pick this year, there's a lot of young guys on that line. So how valuable is it for this team, but really for any team in general, to have a guy who is young, but you can still count on to be that kind of leader when you've got so many other young guys in the room?
Well, if you heard at the end of that quote, when I was talking to George and then off quote, we were chatting about this. You have young experience, which sounds weird, but you have so many guys, whether it's front, middle, or back, that have played a lot earlier in their careers and have had success, and they played in high leverage games. If you think about Willie Gay Jr., who's going into his fourth year, but think how many big games Willie Gay Jr.'s played in. And even Nick Bolton, think about him in going into his third year. He's really played, 2.5 when you look at he's played, all those guys have played 6 postseason games each year. So that gives you young experience. And up front now, with what Karlaftis went through, and because he has the acumen to be that anyway, I think I told you guys a year ago, when I first met this rookie class of a year ago, now the sophomores of 23, I would have hired every one of them. I mean, Karlaftis is so impressive. You're just going to get more and more out of him, and like the nation will discover him. Now, he's not Joey Bosa, okay? But he's not far behind him. And he knows he's not Joey Bosa, but he also knows he can be a double-digit sack guy with 7 or 8 passes defense, a couple forced fumbles, and can change a game. But he also, when you look at the young guys across the board, now they're going to have to, you mentioned no Frank Clark. Charles Omenihu is now suspended for the first 6 games of the year. So you're not going to have time to wait around for them. They're going to have to jump out of the gate and sprint. These young guys, Felix is playing better this week. It's been a positive sign. But now George can bring Felix along. To me, one of the coolest things for Felix is he can grow with George. It's the sophomore with the freshman, and the sophomores played a lot. And so that's a very positive thing for the Chiefs defensively up front.
All right, Mitch, as we continue sophomore week coming up tomorrow, what can we expect to hear from camp?
A person who's on a parallel to me of what has to happen for this team to, let's say, stay 13-4, get a bye, and try to win Super Bowl 58, and that is Sky Moore on the offensive end. We're going to dive into Sky Moore and why there's a whole lot more, no pun intended, than people realize at this point.
Oh, I'm excited for that one. I've got a lot of high hopes for Sky Moore coming into this year.
Okay.
Mitch Holthus
Keep those. Okay.
He is the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs. He joins us for our Chiefs training camp report every day during camp, brought to you by Hy-Vee and Azure Credit Union. Ask Haven Byrne, Crystal Rippey, or Melissa Hunter about using the Credit Union Advantage for your home loan at Azure Credit Union. Mitch, we appreciate the time, my friend. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks, guys. More coming your way.
Absolutely love that. That is Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Chiefs, the absolute best. So happy I got to be back for the reports. I missed those last week.
Yeah, they were a good time. We obviously got through Mahomes and Kelsey and Brett Veach last week and had some great stuff. And of course, if you missed any of those, want to relive them, they're up on the podcast page on our website, 580wibw.com. Just hover over that podcast tab at the top of the page. Click on 580 Sports Talk. We got hour-by-hour breakdowns of the show, and Mitch is in hour 3 every day since last Monday, and will continue to be throughout this week.
Absolutely the best of the best, Mitch Holthus. We've got to get out of here in just about a minute. Let's get to a quick final word.
Okay, I don't have
today.
I don't have a bed.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I sprung that on you. Final word for today.
Final word for today. We have officially reached the nobody actually wants to do this portion of college football conference realignment. If we're really having the ACC discuss Cal and Stanford, who do not bring anything to the league football-wise, but might bring West Coast eyeballs to ESPN and the ACC network. So again, that's why we're here, and that's why we're headed towards a future where all of this blows up, and eventually it'll all make sense again.
Yeah, that's where I am too. That look, I'm mostly against this. I understand why it's good, and I think the Big 10 as a conference, or the Big 12, excuse me. And I'm getting my conferences confused now. It's going to be awesome long-term. The Big 10 probably will be too. Oregon and Washington, those are 2 good athletic departments. But realistically, if you're just looking at this from a 1,000-foot view, how do you reconcile all of the other sports that go on that deserve a spot at these universities? They should not just be a school with an attached football team. There should be more to them than that. How do you reconcile making your rowing team fly across the country middle of the week, or having women's basketball play a game in Piscataway and then in Ann Arbor and then back in Seattle right after that? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And if the ACC wants some California schools now, that makes even less sense. We're done for Royals baseball. Back tomorrow at 3. For Dan, I'm Brendan. This is 580 Sports Talk.
AM WIB.